Hi, everybody, and welcome to the, campground, first of all, and to the Fun Astrology Weekly Overview for the week of August 18th. I'm Thomas Miller. Thank you for being right where you are. And we are going to take a look at this fairly light week in the sky, but boy, what we have has some incredible stuff. In fact, the ending here, I'm going to share something with you that I think will light you up, but you're going to have to wait until the end, and we'll get to it. It's next Sunday's aspect. We have really about three things going on this week. We have the moon, and we have some more long voids, of course, including one that just seems forever. And then karma is big, a theme in the chart this week. And then also this climax aspect on Sunday that I'll tell you about in just a minute. So let's jump into the chart for the week. And the best way to show you is to take a look at our Honeycomb Almanac page for this week instead of the chart, because it shows the picture better, if you will. And we're going to start with the moon, which will be in Gemini Monday morning coming into the beginning of the week. But here's the pattern that continues to happen, that we have these long voids, of course. Same thing that we had last week. And this one starts on Monday morning. That will be at 7:52 on Monday. We'll talk about this on the audio podcast. But it goes void, of course, and the last aspect before it does is positive. And this is why I keep saying to look at Kristin's lunar calendar, because she tells you whether these are positive or negative by coloring them. Red for challenging, green for easier, and this one would be a green color. So we have a sextile from the moon to the sun, so that's positive. So that happens, and that basically lasts all of Monday. That's over 7 hours, and then at 3:05 Eastern, Monday afternoon, the moon goes into Cancer. The moon stays in Cancer all day Tuesday, and then the same thing. We go a little longer this time. 8:30 Wednesday morning, same thing. We have a positive aspect before it, and now we have a 10-hour, 49-minute void, of course. Whoops, I just moved those, didn't I? See, Mercury retrograde is alive and well. I don't even know how to do that, but I just did. So, see, if you're a Gemini rising, you're not out of Mercury retrograde yet. I hope I am by the 25th. Then the moon enters Leo that evening, Wednesday evening. And then look at this one. No, your eyes are not playing tricks on you. That's 35 hours, 11 minutes. On Thursday, the moon goes void, of course, at 2:13 in the afternoon and stays there all the way till early Saturday morning. Now, these are all Eastern times. You can convert them to your own. But then it moves into Virgo by the end of the week. And right after that, we have the new moon. So if you wanted to do a new moon ceremony, this would be a really good time to do it, because the sun goes into Virgo right there. So there's your luminary path through the entire week. Virgo season, that's also the day that the trine leg between Mars and Pluto separates, so the kite goes away. The kite is gone as of Friday. And then we have the new moon on Saturday. So that's the path. Now, that only leaves us one other day, and that's the one that I wanted to show you and hold back a little bit, because there is some real significance to this next aspect. Back to the chart. And just from the two planets involved, this is Uranus over here on the left side and the sun over here on the right side, and they are connected by a square. A 90-degree exact square. That is early Sunday morning, 3:14 in the morning. So again, while we're asleep, but every day this week, we're going to be getting closer and closer to that very impactful aspect. This is the kind of aspect that Merriman will be talking about, flipping the market direction. And notice that the sun has already moved into Virgo, so that puts the sun, a little squiggly line there, and a quincunx to the Aries vortex point of Saturn and Neptune, and also a quincunx to Pluto. So those of you who are on the ball, yes, we do have a yod out of that as well. So with both of these, but particularly what I'm going to focus on now, in fact, I'm going to erase the yod, because I just want us to focus on this aspect right here, because there is something really cool packed inside of this that I'm going to show you in a minute. If we take cookbook astrology, this could be a gnarly, tense, potentially challenging, surprising kind of aspect. So that edgy and jittery feeling that you've been having could be likely to continue. There is one other seasoning of this aspect, and that is with the sun now in Virgo. Virgo wants things done right. And the sun, in this context, could be all things. And we know what Virgo can do if Virgo doesn't like what things are being done or how they're being done. So watch for that Virgo reaction. Could be criticism, could be frustration. There's another element where you see how, looking at the chart from this perspective, we really have, if you kind of stack up, we have the challenging aspects, and this certainly is a challenging aspect, and the sun and Uranus from a financial standpoint. I mean, this is almost like New Year's Eve for the financial astrologers, for Merriman's organization. This is a big one. So in your own life and in the world, if something is not flat or square or aligned, I don't know what the best word is, these modern words, if something is not as it should be from a Virgo's perspective, watch out. That's where that conflict could come. Now, on its way out of Leo, before it got to Virgo, the sun, notice that Chiron is at 26 degrees. The sun was in a trine to Chiron when it was still just before it left Leo. And that is another theme that comes up. Also, the nodes of the moon. So there's a karma theme with this that is very loud and very strong, but you don't see it as much here. But boy, it sure does from this view. Now, whoa, what happened to the chart? Well, if you caught the Friday podcast, I mentioned that I had blown the dust off of Uranian astrology. And this was something that I wish, oh man, why was I not looking at this earlier? I came back to this and I am so glad I did, because this is a system that was developed in the early 1900s, 1920s, by a group of German astrologers led by Alfred Witte, and they discovered, well, I think Witte was just amazing. Pluto wasn't discovered until 1930, and in the 20s, he was writing about that there should be planetary energy out there where Pluto was ultimately discovered. And then he said the same thing about the Kuiper Belt, that there should be energetic points out there that we could mark. And all these things on this chart, all of a sudden, that don't look right, these other characters, are 8 different points that group of German astrologers, mostly centered out of Hamburg, discovered and attributed these various energies to. I'm not going to go into that. This is a whole different system of looking at the sky. It's harmonic astrology on one front, and then it's midpoint astrology as the main basis of it. But when he put this on a 90-degree wheel instead of a 360-degree wheel like our zodiac. So here's basically how this works. If you take this arrow, you can move the arrow around. So if you take the arrow and put it up here at 0 degrees, this is 90 degrees all the way around. So if you take 30 degrees and just do that, these are all the degree points of the cardinal signs. They're plotted there. So all these planets are plotted where they are because they are that degree in a cardinal sign. And then here's the next 30 degrees. These are the fixed, and these are the mutables. So this is 1, 2, 3 degrees, 2, 3 degrees, 1, 2 degrees in there in the mutable realm. That's how these things are placed. So when you see 2 planets together that in our wheel chart are not together, that's why, because we're looking at degrees. And you remember on the Old Soul, New Soul podcast, Robert talked a lot about the importance of degrees. Well, here is another use and another application of degrees that we never even discussed. But this is how you can see into, like, these two, the Sun and Uranus, are in a square. But here they're sitting side by side. Well, sitting side by side doesn't mean they're in a conjunction either. That's not how this works. Then when you move the dial, you can go to a particular planet. In fact, here you can just click on the planet. There's the Sun. And because they are right on the same degree, see, this is the exact time of the square, 3:14 in the morning. You click on one, you click on the other, they don't move. Nothing moves. Well, that's how this is placed. And Uranus is in Gemini, a mutable sign, and the sun has just moved into Virgo, a mutable sign. So that's the idea kind of how this works. And then you basically just look at these as, in essence, conjunctions. Interpret them as conjunctions. So when you take the North Node and then the moon is moving in here, so I went ahead and included it in Sunday's interpretation because by the end of the day, Sunday, the moon has moved into almost the same degree position as the North Node. And what you do is you just interpret almost a lot like you would normally, at least for the planets. And then these other energies, you bring them in as well. So I did that. I went through and I combined everything. And here's what I wrote out. I just want to basically walk you through this because here we have, notice, the Great Pyramid. It's just in a different form. See, they're your trines. And because we now are in this midpoint relationship, that is just so cool, isn't it? So we would interpret that. And then we're also catching this over to this. And also here being directly opposite the degree points of Uranus and the sun, we catch that too. So everything is alive in this chart. And I brought it all into this little narrative that I wanted to go through. So what I saw in here was a double connection to our soul path. One is through the North Node, the other is through Chiron. In very positive connections based on looking at the Sun Uranus. We're coming through the lens of the Sun and Uranus. This is about tearing down old structures, especially if they hold you back. Anything that is constraining, limiting, or restricting of your soul or your human journey. You know, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Well, if human experience is also constrained and limited, this is tearing down those walls as well, but particularly the soul path. This is a week, and this is a bold statement, but this is what I'm saying, that this is a week that could open you up to incredible new cutting-edge spiritual revelations. Not just insights, but new spiritual dynamics, new takes on things, new ways of doing things. And this is affecting both sides of your consciousness, your soul and your mind. This is a renewing of the whole being. And it is about you and me taking full responsibility. There's a leadership component to this, i.e., leadership of yourself. For who we are, who I am being, who you are being, how we are responding, and where we go from here. There was a key phrase that kept coming up in the interpretations: needs to overcome the past, needs to overcome the past, needs to overcome the past. The idea being to lock the past out, as workers would be locked out from a company if they went on strike. The old past that no longer serves you is not allowed entrance into your life anymore. That is what this image is saying. Isn't that amazing? You don't get that from the natal chart or from the transit chart, from the sky chart that we looked at a minute ago. You don't get that. But here, from this perspective, it jumps off the page. So if your old wounds, your old Chiron wounds, show up this week, don't run from them. Realize instead that this whole thing is working together and that karmic assistance is right there at hand. All of the planets, don't look at aspects. These are all working together to help you. So follow your intuition, seek the higher path always. Make sure you know that North Node direction in your own chart because it is merged now today, this week, with Luna, the moon, who is taking significant time off this week to give you the space to sit quietly and really, with your journal in hand, figure this out. So do some journaling, do some reading, do some studying, do some meditating, do some praying, do some walking, whatever it takes to tune into this potentially higher path, all created by a square in the chart between the Sun and Uranus. And you know, one of the great things that I love about looking at the chart from this way, I'm sad that I set it aside for a while, but I'm sure glad to be back looking at it again, and with a lot more clarity and understanding. But this Uranian style of astrology adds 8 additional components to the chart, but they are not planets, they are energy pockets that are out in space. And there's a whole story behind how all of that came together. But the thing that I love about it is that Uranian astrology connects to energy pockets, not just lines and graphs and, you know, this planet and that planet, which are great. But what it's advocating is, even if Mars wasn't if the red planet was gone, that energy would still be represented by that place in space. And that's what this is connecting with, is astrological energy. And you know I love that. So I hope that this week sets you up well, and I hope that you will do the exercises that we talked about and treat this like one of the most opportune weeks of the whole Great Pyramid structure as we're getting started with it. Like, this is huge, and I hope you'll take advantage of it. I'll see you on the podcasts. Kristin will be with me on Tuesday and Thursday, and I hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you here next week.